Hello, friends. Hello, brothers. This is Justin with Masonic Improvement. I'm very excited for this interview that we're doing this evening. I'm joined with my co-host, Right Worshipful Dennis Yates, and the wise man of Waco himself, Brother Robert Marshall.
Yeah. You gotta love the little names he gives everybody. That's
I forgot to drop the Guru of Goliad this time, but it's all right. I was so excited.
That's okay.
I thought it was clever with the wise man of Waco. I wanted to be sure I got that one out.
That's okay. We had lodge today, and so everybody got to see the Guru with his case. With
What
his
are,
Guru case.
what are you then? Are you the hellspawn of Hillsborough?
Exactly. Yes. Finally, somebody on my side.
Well, that's probably going to catch now, but
yes. You can believe that. I got to make a new case now. He was the Herald of Hillsborough. Now he calls himself. He calls him. Yeah, and he calls himself the Herald because he doesn't want to be a herald. So, but he's my herald.
Yeah, I'm not 45 and balding. I'm not a herald. So Robert,
well, I am super stoked. I just got to say real quick, I am super stoked to have Robert on the show. He's been a friend of mine for many years, and along with Justin, and we always get together at Grand Lodge and chew the chud, and it's some of the best discussions I ever have are with these two brothers, and some of the best times in Freemasonry that I can attribute my Masonic career to involve these two brothers. So I'm very excited to have both y'all in the same place at the same time. Don't look so excited, Robert.
I'm glad you're excited.
So Robert is actually this is not his first interview here, but I think this is the first time that Dennis has been on the show with the interview. So,
yeah. But I listened to that first one. So I'll watch what I say so I don't get knocked out.
I'm glad you did, because I actually brought 10 questions about the last episode that I was hoping you'd be able to answer.
Nice.
When I was in when I was in undergrad, one of my favorite professors was a history professor, and she told us the first day of class that the chances of getting a pop quiz were the same as the chances of her coming through the window to start class. And we were on the third floor of a really old building at Baylor, so just like, oh sweet, we're never gonna have a pop quiz. So like 3 weeks into the semester, the window rolls open, she's late, and we're all wondering where she is. And in comes an American colonial soldier, that was her, in uniform for the lecture that day, on a 40-foot ladder that she'd gotten the maintenance crew to set up for her, and gave us a pop quiz. But nobody could be mad about it because she warned us.
That is awesome.
She put the work in for it. So
that's right.
Yeah. So Robert, I'm very excited. I know we have I think it's going to be the second Waco Festive board coming up this month, isn't it? In June?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's the second recent festive board, but our lodge, like most lodges, if you look back in the records, you'll find festive boards used to be a common thing, not an annual thing, more like a monthly thing back in the day, and our lodge used to do really big ones throughout the year.
Mm. Well, last year was really big, or it felt really big.
Last year was great. We were in McLean Stadium over there, Baylor's football stadium that I worked on when they put it up, and I have some fun memories there from when I was a student, and it was brand new. But I think we had about 90 people there in McLean Stadium. So this year we'll be right across the river inside the official Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum, which I also worked on. So.
Nice.
That is awesome. I tell you what, I missed it last year. I'm absolutely sick about it. I wanted to go, and I can't remember. Yeah, there was some conflict, and I can't remember what it was. But I had meant to go, and I missed it, and I just cannot wait for this one. I've been to a lot of festive boards, and that's Freemasonry to me. That's what it's all about. You know, if you want to talk about fellowship, camaraderie, a good education, a little history, it's a festive board. That's Freemasonry. So if you have a chance, guys, this is an event to go to, and Waco, I know, never disappoints in anything that they do. So I can't wait to do it.
Except for the time that it smelled like we cooked a rat in the Grand Lodge, but we'll skip right past that.
We don't talk about that.
I agree with you. I think Freemasonry really happens at festive boards, and it's common still, I think, for people to think that those are new. And when you say Freemasonry happens at festive boards, you can look all the way back to 300-400 years ago, when in the middle of or as a degree was finishing, they would flip the altar upside down and cover it in food and drink, and they would have a festive board right then and there every time there was a degree. So it really used to be a staple of you couldn't do Freemasonry without festive boards originally. That's why it's called a festive board. It was the board of the table, the altar being flipped upside down.
I just think back to what a great experience every festive board has been for me. And it makes me think of the retention we would have if, as soon as you did an EA degree, you flipped and you started doing a festive board like immediately after. Obviously not flipping your altar over, right? But you just transition right into it.
Yeah, or at least a master's.
I mean, altars, just the common altar now in a Masonic lodge really isn't built for that sort of thing. But back then, I mean, it was a much simpler setup. So it's not like you were flipping over a giant solid altar like we have now.
Yeah, it was more like a table type of thing, like an end table that you would see today.
It was just temporarily set up for lodge, because those spaces usually weren't permanent lodge rooms. They were usually spaces that they were renting above a coffee house or a pub. And that space was rented out for all kinds of things, like science clubs or whatever kind of group wanted to rent it out.
Dennis, did you get a ticket? Am I going to see you there?
Oh, you better believe I got a ticket.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going up for AMD Day the week before, and I'm coming back for the festival board, because I thought that they were going to be at the same time, as well as Grand Lodge and stuff, but all that was moved. But this is, sorry, Brad, but this was why I was coming to Waco to begin with.
I just want to say that when you travel as a Mason, every once in a while you'll attend something that will recharge your Masonic batteries, so to speak. And sometimes you didn't even realize you're running on low until you go to one of these things, and then you're inspired, you're excited. It's a very positive experience, and so I would encourage everybody, and I don't really care how far away you are. If there's still any tickets available, go, and I'll include a link below in the description and in the comments. Check the link out and get yourself a ticket. I don't care if you got to drive 3, 4, or 5 hours for it. If your Masonic battery is low, you should make it a priority. And if it's not low, you should still make it a priority, because it might be lower than you think. And I know last year, I didn't realize that my Masonic battery was low. I didn't realize I was getting low on juice, but I mean, it was an excellent meal. Brothers that I had seen on Facebook, I've seen around, but I never actually met in person. So that was great, and pretty good lecture. I mean, it was okay. No, Robert gave a great lecture on Egyptian Freemasonry, and he actually inspired me to get the book.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah, so it was a great presentation. There was nothing about it that was disappointing in any way. As I recall, we started with a master's degree at Waco, and then we were supposed to We do like a bagpipe progression procession across.
They actually did it. So it started raining, and I officially called it off because I was worried people were going to get rained on in their tuxedos. But some brave dudes, including the Piper, who's from Waco, but it is the official Piper of Robert Burns Lodge down in Round Rock and Georgetown. Philip Bates is his name. He's a great dude. He actually just played bagpipes this past weekend at the Austin Scottish Rite reunion as well.
Nice.
He led a procession across the Brazos River into McLean Stadium, while the rest of us chickened out and went straight to the venue. And I think there were a half dozen. Were you one of the guys that went with him?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were.
Yeah.
I'm glad y'all did that, because I was excited that was part of the plan, and disappointed that we had to call it off, and glad y'all did it anyway.
Yeah.
He's a really great bagpiper.
Are y'all playing? You playing anything like that this year? Like, can you?
He's coming. I'll ask him if he's going to pipe. I don't know if he is or not. But I do know he's coming to the festive board. We have free reign of the museum itself, so I'll be able to walk some guys through the museum. I wrote dozens of the official biographies for the Texas Rangers there, so I'm pretty familiar with their exhibits and the people that they feature in it.
Nice.
There's a silent auction with some really, really cool items. Brother Yates has provided a custom apron case, and there's a custom cooler with the Grand Lodge seal on the top of etched into the top of it. There's a pistol. There's a really, really, I think, impressive painting by a local or regionally well-known painter, and it depicts a scene of a Freemason's farmhouse in Waco. It's really nice. It was made as a gift to our past master, who donated it for the silent auction in memory of his mother when she passed away. The painter was her best friend. So that is really a special piece. I was shocked that he was willing to donate it. There's some other fun stuff planned. I don't want to give everything away, but you said if there are tickets available, there certainly are, and they're $75. You can find them at wacomasonic.org/store. So it's not a hard URL to put in. If you're a Mason, we'd be more than happy to have you there. We'll have some Prince Hall guys in attendance, just like last year, which
very cool.
Our festive board script includes some particular things for Prince Hall guests. So it's important to have them there. Otherwise, we'd have to drop that part of the script. But the 7 traditional toasts going back hundreds of years. And there will be another lecture. The meal has been sorted out, and it's going to be a good menu. Southern Roots Brewery, directly across the street from Grand Lodge, is supplying the beer. They're the producers of Waco Lodge's own beer.
I enjoy that beer.
Yep.
I like that brewery.
Yeah, they're great. And last year we gathered over there after the festive board and had cigars and drinks in front of the Grand Lodge, which is a lot of fun. If you've never been to see the Grand Lodge at nighttime, it's definitely worth it because of the way the stained glass is lit up. It's a building, at least from the outside, that I think was designed to be seen at night.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's majestic day or night, but it's worth seeing it both times.
Agreed.
And just to let all the listeners know, that $75, that's for a quality meal. We're not talking about green beans and hamburgers or, stuff like that. It's not your local fish fry, which, we're not talking bad about that. I love fish, and we eat well at our lodges and at our lodges all the time. However, this is special, and it's put together special. Everything has a purpose, and it's made purposeful and with meaning and care, so that you have the best experience, so that all your senses that you learn about in Freemasonry are filled. All your your different your mind, your body, and your spirit. You know, all three are filled. You get to fill your cup in a festive board. And I can tell you, any that I've ever been to, I have never been disappointed. And I know that this one will be the same. And I am so excited that it's at the Texas Rangers
Yep.
museum. I mean, that is just so cool. That is so cool. And I'm surprised that we don't have all of them over. You know, all the Texas Rangers from around the state. I'm surprised that they're not showing up in droves.
Yeah. A lot of Texas Rangers were Masons, and I will say that you might not see a lot of retired Texas Ranger Masons there. This is just conjecture. I know a few years ago with the Masonic Texas Ranger group, there was some tension between the official Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum and those guys, because the official Texas Rangers agency took issue with the Masonic one because they had not sought sanction from the Texas Ranger agency for something they were doing, and there was some kind of conflict there. I don't know if there's still bad blood there or not, but that could be why those guys don't attend. If they don't attend, I don't know, they might be attending. But it's a special place for a lot of reasons. Of course, it's cool because of the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum. It's a great view of the Brazos. But also, it's literally on top of our original Masonic cemetery from the 1860s.
Did not know that.
Yeah, a really weird thing happened in Waco, where it was our cemetery for 30, 40 years. And then in the 1890s, due to flooding in that area, they moved the cemetery over to what's now called Oakwood Cemetery. So it had originally been the Masonic cemetery. There was a Jewish cemetery next to it. The lodge sold a piece of property for the Oddfellows to have a cemetery, and then donated a piece of the cemetery to the city. So all four entities had places to bury people there. And then when they moved for the flooding, all of those entities also moved down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was supposed to be that the bodies were moved with the cemetery, and the lodge maintained ownership of the property despite the moving of the cemetery. Well, in 1969, the city started a project that was then called the Fort Fisher Museum, which was the name of a fort that had been there by the Texas Rangers back in the day. And it was sort of like a retro, go see what it was like to be in a mid-1800s Ranger fort experience. And then that turned into the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum. But before they could put it there, they had to get access to the property, which meant asking the lodge for it. And we still have the document from the city thanking us for donating the property to them. However, this is where I admonish the past leaders of my lodge. They just donated the property that had been their cemetery, and they left the bodies of their brothers in the ground. So fast forward 40 years, by the time it had grown from the fort and it was time to build a larger museum facility where we'll be having dinner, when they broke the ground to build the building, they found a lot of bodies. And so the construction had to stop, and it was halted for half a decade, maybe a little longer, as they tried to figure out, well, are there natives? Are they settlers? Who are they? What do we need to do with them? That literally took years. I can't imagine just giving away the remains of my brothers. I think that's a shame or a mar on that era of Waco Masonry. But it's cool to be able to go back to it now and honor the memory of those guys, including George Erath, who has a statue there. He was our charter treasurer. He spoke 9 languages and immigrated from Austria before he was a veteran of the Battle of San Jacinto. He had the task at the end of the battle of guarding the personal belongings of Santa Anna, and shared some really interesting things about it in his memoirs, which you can also read on our website. Half of the charter members of Waco Lodge were Texas Rangers, and the first man they ever initiated was a Ranger, Shapley Ross, the father of Sol Ross, who was also a Waco Lodge member and even more famous Texas Ranger. So yeah, our lodge has a lot of ties to that place as a lodge and the agency itself.
That is awesome.
We make such a big emphasis on Masonic funerals and things like that, and you can read in old minutes like huge processions from the church to the Masonic processions from the church to the graveyard, where there'd be a ton of Masons there. It'd be the community knew about it. I mean, it was a huge deal. And so going from that to just leave them there. That's something. That's very
it's hard to
disappointing.
imagine. And you're right. They used to be a really big deal. Daniel Gardner, the Grand Secretary of Montana, he has written some stuff that's been out in journals lately. I think Research Lodge in England published on it, and maybe it was a Scottish Rite journal, as well as a California journal. His stuff's coming out in different places where he has focused on the role that Masonic funeral processions played in the American West.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been greatly underappreciated by Masons and non-Mason historians alike. It was really important because in the American West, sometimes these towns were so fledgling that if you died and you were a Mason, that was the only thing that you had guaranteeing that you would have any kind of burial service at all.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times churches hadn't even arrived yet. And
they would put bodies in the lodge rooms. They would actually display the body in the lodge room, and they would have the service in the lodge, and then they would carry it in procession to the cemetery. That's, man, if I can talk the guys into doing that for me, that's how I want to go. If I have to do what?
We still do that. We still do that today. We just call them past masters.
That's funny.
I'll probably cut that part out.
No, you need to.
Of course,
no editing tonight.
With the advent of vehicles, towns grew and distance increased, so it wasn't really possible to walk from the lodge to the cemetery anymore. And that also used to include walking to or from the brother's house where they would have gotten the body. And you're right. What you're describing is a wake, and
exactly. Yes,
they held those at the lodge, and there was a private funeral ceremony, a precursor and parallel to the public Masonic service that we're all more familiar with. And we mostly don't do the private one at all anymore. It's kind of been condensed into what we do for the Lodge of Sorrows. But back then, you couldn't open and call off the Lodge of Sorrow for the whole year. You had to open the lodge every single time you were doing a funeral.
Each one, yes.
And there was a whole ceremony that went with it. We've really gotten away from a lot of that, but it was really crucial in the 1800s to the development of society across the West. Because in reality, you might die tomorrow morning. It was a very real possibility in the West. So the promise of some kind of service and your body being cared for and your widow potentially being cared for meant way more in the pre-insurance and multi-generation in a community era.
Yes,
Robert?
and pre-stock market, pre-401k, there was none of that.
I'm trying to remember if it was a conversation with me and Dennis or you and I, Robert. It may have actually been on your show at one point. But the discussion was, and I think it's very valid. If you look at like the world wars and the civil wars, you see a very large swing in membership, and a lot of that appeal, I suspect, was that, and you hear about like Masonic funerals, like World War I and Civil War and things like that. And so I think a huge appeal to being a Mason at those times was you would actually be buried and have a funeral as opposed to just being left there.
Yes, as a matter of fact, they did do that specifically in the Civil War, and that was very important. There was an oration not too long ago that was done by I believe one of the grand orders, and they had discussed it at length, where there was a general that these guys were captive, and this general saw the sign of a master mason on the other guy, and they stopped fighting for the whole day, and both sides came together and buried a brother, and then went back and resumed fighting the next day. So that was a real thing that happened, and many people joined during that time because they didn't want to be just left in the field and not known to the world what happened. So I don't know, Robert, you're the historian here. This is what I've learned in reading and hearing orations and stuff, but isn't that pretty factual?
Let me start by saying that you asked me to make an assessment on whether it was factual. So what I'm going to is not imposed in any way. I was asked, so I'm going to answer.
This is awesome. So I'm getting shut down. That's what he's saying. He's going to shut me down and shut me up.
No.
So,
good night, there are records. There are records of cases like that you described, and things like that did happen in wartime, in that war and in other wars. But there are also a lot of myths, and some things that can be demonstrably shown as myths. And one of the biggest ones is the when it comes to the Civil War, is the what do they call it? The from brother to brother statue, or something like that, where he's kneeling, and that one often comes with a story about those two guys being on opposite sides of the war, and how they were really close friends, and then he was dying on the battlefield and they had a moment. There's no record of the moment, and while they might have been acquaintances, there is absolutely, in fact, the evidence strongly suggests they weren't close friends. So that's a very mythologized story that's been expanded over time, just because the statue encouraged people to do that. There are probably cases similar to the myth that happened, but the guys that are usually used for it, that's definitely myth. But I mean, there are real cases of Masonry causing guys who were otherwise enemies in wartime to treat each other better. And one of the presidents during the Civil War, I can't remember if it was McKinley, maybe Taft, one of the somewhere right in that era, one of those guys that were president in the generation following the Civil War around the turn of the 20th century, I think. When they were younger, visited a POW camp or were serving, they saw some kind of positive exchange or good treatment of prisoners who were Masons. And the president, the guy who became president of the United States, later went on record saying that was why he joined. So there's a pretty prominent example of someone who joined for the reason that Dennis is talking about. So those things did happen, but it's really common for the stories we get of them to not have happened. Just like the Santa Ana thing that has been shared and shared.
I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, those which is unfortunate, because while those myths would be cool if they were true, when you find out that they're not true, it's really disappointing. And then if you dig some more, there are actually true stories that are really cool, sometimes even better. So we end up fixated on a made up story instead of finding out the better truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what's, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I don't think in a heat of battle you would have people not shooting one another because they recognize the lapel pin or something like that.
Yeah.
No matter how many lapel pins you may have.
Right. Everybody would wear a lapel. But what I was gonna say is what's interesting, and speaking to what just happened, that's why we joined Freemasonry, because we want to learn, we want to educate ourselves, we want to be, because through the years there's been so many determinations of doctrine when it comes to religion and when it comes to politics. And we are charged to educate ourselves on both and seek the truth so that we can admonish justice and be the upright citizens that we need to be. And that's a perfect example right there. Is some I have read some different stories on that, but I've also heard some different orations, and I have heard that very one that you're talking about. And so knowing that some of those stories are false doesn't surprise me, because the same thing happened over the years as generations regurgitated the stories of even the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, whatever. As generations go, before there were written words, people would tell the stories, and so the stories got distorted. Now we have history, and it's easier to go back to the not so distant past, but in the very past, and that's why Freemasonry came about. So, I mean, that's just an excellent example of why we should be, reading, why we should be visiting these museums, why we should be, educating ourselves in the arts. And I'm sorry I got on that tangent, but when you corrected me, I was afraid, and
That's not what
I was
happened.
excited. I know.
He got back to the corners and just started talking his way out of it.
You asked,
but when he started
I
talking, I was
correct.
afraid. I was afraid, and I was excited at the same time. That's
Well, like
Freemasonry.
I said, the general thing you were describing was true. There were a lot of cases. It's true more than
Right.
one. There were a lot of examples of that stuff happening. I brought up the other specific story and said that one wasn't true. But what you're talking about,
Well,
was
and that's perfect.
on the nose.
Yes, but that's perfect. That's the kind of stuff that we like to get out there for our listeners, so that people get the real story in Freemasonry, and not just what it happens even with our esoteric memorization work. A lot of times we get the story that's not necessarily the true meaning of a symbol or a gesture, and it's because that lodge has functioned a certain way for so many years, and it's been retold the same. It just happens, and so it's good. That's why it's good that we have the floor schools. It's good that we have the mentorship programs that educate the craft, and it's good that we have the festive boards, and to where we get to meet people from all walks of life, people that know these things. If it wasn't for traveling, I would have never met you, either one of y'all. And now y'all are some of my closest friends, and so that's Freemasonry. If it wasn't for Freemasonry, we wouldn't be here today. And me sitting here talking gibberish and thinking, I wonder how the baby's doing. That's Freemasonry. Those connections. You get to meet people through the festive boards and through travel, and you get to make connections that you wouldn't normally get.
Robert,
you've already made connections in your lodge. Now it's time to travel and go get them from a festive board.
Not to change the subject, but a thought occurred to me. Do you know if Brother Fluff is going to the festive board? Have you heard anything from him?
You mean the TikTok guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. We
got
to call him.
Head, I don't know. I'd have to look at the list. He might be.
If you're not, we're calling you out, Brother Fluff.
When you first ask, it's tricky because we have a past master at Waco Lodge whose name is Fluffy, and we call him Fluff. So when you first ask about it, I think of Fluff here. Is his name Wyatt?
Yes, like Zachary Wyatt.
Zachary.
Yeah.
Yes, Zachary Wyatt.
Again, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. I think his name is already on the list.
Nice.
Good. And I know he'll bring a few of his buddies, and they're all friends of ours. So we'll have a good time.
Yeah, man. Dang it, there's something.
He's been making waves, ticking and talking.
He has
Yes.
been. He's working hard at it too. Like he's always putting out content.
Yeah, and he's good at it for stuff like the festive boards. You know, we have our podcast, but realistically, you can't do that at a festive board. But he can pop it up and get everybody excited about it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is going to be. I know last time I went. I mean, you meet a lot of people at Grand Lodge anyway, but a lot of the people that I still haven't met before, or I only see every once in a while. I mean, pretty much everybody that was anybody was there last year, and so I expect it'll be the same this year. Everybody who's anybody,
really,
and
anybody
maybe
that was anybody.
Yep. Nope, that was right.
Well, all the cool Masons were there. We'll just put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All the fly Masons.
People don't say that anymore, Dennis.
That's why I'm on the show, so that I can attract the older generation.
Yeah.
We're bringing it back.
Man.
That's how I have it.
Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, the festive board is going to be exciting. Being able to, and it's not just past masters either. You have worshipful masters, senior wardens, junior, whoever wants to come to a festive board. A master mason can come to a festive board, and so it's not just the who's who. It's anybody who wants to experience the marrow in the bone. Anybody that
is it even limited to master masons? I think one brother brought his wife last year.
Yeah,
so,
EAs. No. Hold
EAs,
on. EAs and fellowcrafts can go. There was a guy who brought a date, his girlfriend. He showed up really late in the night. You remember that? The festive board was almost over, and he absolutely should not have brought her. He was from San Antonio, so he had driven a long way, and the festive board was almost over, so it was just kind of a all right, you can go sit over there with her, but yeah, no, please don't bring your wives. We like your wives. Bring them to town, bring them to Waco, take them to Magnolia or the historic Waco Foundation homes. If you've got kids, the Dr. Pepper Museum or the Mayborn Museum is right next door to the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum. It houses the oldest museum in Texas, which is named after a member of Waco Lodge, the Strecker Museum. And it's got amazing stuff in it. Really, really fun time for kids and families to go through. They can learn about science and physics and geology and fossils and all kinds of stuff. But the festive board itself is for Masons only, EAs, Fellowcrafts, Master Masons. And we might have already hit our quota on past masters. We try to keep that down to only a few so that it doesn't get too grumpy at the festive board.
Nice.
And we have also already hit.
So we're allowed to serve alcohol?
Yeah. Well, and we've also already hit our capacity for Grand Lodge officers. We try not to have too many of those.
You don't want too many harumphs during the presentation.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any fun if there were Grand Lodge officers. They'd be slapping me in the back of the head the whole night.
Well, I'm going to. I've been inviting lots of brothers, but I'm going to double down on that to see how many more I can get to go to Waco with me. Just because.
Yeah, regardless, you guys are coming. We're going to have a good time. We've got a pretty good number now, and the more that come, the merrier. But. It's definitely going to be a fun time. The worshipful master's wife has what's the word? Weaved? I don't know. She made a carpet with a Texas and a square and compass logo on it. Pretty good size in the photos. I want to say it's like 4 feet by 4 feet, maybe. So that's pretty cool. A custom rug. All attendees will be getting a forbidden Texas Masonic artifact.
Oh, nice.
Whoa, yes.
Nice.
I can't wait.
outlawed material.
Nice.
I have suspicions
Now
already.
you're speaking my
Yeah.
love
Can
language.
can imagery of it be found at the Grand Lodge?
Oh, no, you're not
Okay.
thinking the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, this is it pertains to one of the steps on the winding stairs.
Oh,
Interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, I was
I can't wait.
I was thinking more along the lines of going to what I was talking about earlier. I want to bring brothers from my district, and I think this is a great opportunity for any Mason that really wants to level up things in their district. A lot of people they have to see things, what something can be before they really start get the gears turning. And so, excuse me. So I'll get brothers from my district to say, hey, I'm not necessarily talking about hosting festive boards in my district or anything yet, but like this is what a nice event can be like. This is what a meal can be like. What are you gonna say?
There's a venue out there in your area. It's a castle out on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if event rentals are reasonable out there.
I think it's actually, don't quote me. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's pretty expensive, but I don't know. I haven't personally looked into it, but yeah. I've talked to people that have weddings and things out there. I think I agree. It would be cool. It'd be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah. So sometimes places are too expensive.
Yeah. I had thought about places in my area for something like that at one point, but that castle had never occurred to me. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I have to look into that now.
Yeah, I would show up. I would show up.
Oh, you would, huh?
Yeah, I'm down. You name the date and I'll be there.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Maybe it'll be the Masonic Improvement Festive Board.
Yes, exactly.
That's
what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Justin can host it and I'll just, oh, nice. I'm intimidated now. I'm scared.
You guys are always flying around.
Why are you scared, Dennis?
that guy's just too happy for some reason. What's he got in his hands?
What are you talking about?
Where did that come from?
I don't know what you're talking about, Dennis.
Yeah,
I was going to say earlier, being that the museum is on top of a cemetery, maybe we ought to just turn out all the lights and just sit there for a while.
Yeah, we should have a sleepover.
That's been in some of the festival board marketing that there might be past masters from the 1800s on present with us. Nice,
that'd be cool. If brothers can make that happen, why don't you come to the festival board and let's experience that together.
I'll have to ask our festival board manager, Ryan Durker, to make sure there are 3 Ouija boards in each column of the festival board.
Oh. That would be fun. That'd be fun. No, guys, we're not satanic. We're just fun. We just enjoy life.
Gonna end up summoning the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
You know, Ouija boards were just
that would be
party game.
Were they?
What?
Are they?
Yeah, Ouija boards. They were just a Victorian era party game. Like I don't know what would beer pong today. Imagine if 150 years from now, people had the notion that beer pong was a method to speak to the spirits. That's how silly it is that people take Ouija boards seriously.
Right.
Yeah,
but that happens with. Go ahead.
You always hear stories, but like we were talking about, like stories don't always mean a whole lot, right? Like things get taken out of context.
Well, and yes, and that's why we're not allowed to have skulls in Freemasonry, because it makes people uncomfortable, and even though we should be uncomfortable because we never know when we're going to die. There's no skulls in Freemasonry, don't you know that?
Yeah. That's that forbidden thing I was thinking Robert was talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So oh yeah, I know
He
what
wouldn't
you're
go that
talking
far.
about. But bringing up that point, the reality of death is a real thing, and we should be more conscious about what we're doing and why we're here, and that's part of our Freemasonry. And I think we don't consider it enough in today's world. Like you were saying earlier, we've got the 401ks, we've got all of our different retirement, we got insurance, we got this, we got that. And so people feel like they're prepared, and so they don't want to think about it. And back in the day, people thought about it as a real thing, and it was something that you had to plan for. And that was a real part of Freemasonry.
I don't think being prepared um, financially and being prepared as far as like legacy planning goes is the same thing as being prepared spiritually and emotionally. And I think that's something that's to your point. I think we overlook. I think a lot of people feel comfortable as long as they have their wills and enough in their 401ks to leave to their children or their wives. But when the moment actually comes, there's still that panic because they haven't prepared for it in other ways. But I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. And I was just thinking as you were talking, going back to the winding staircase. If you look at every step on the winding staircase, talking about like the liberal arts and sciences and everything like that, if you take that seriously and take it to heart, that's a lifetime of work right there. I mean, it'll make you a classically trained man by every interpretation of the word, but that's a lifetime of work right there. And the memento mori, or being mindful of death, doesn't necessarily fall into that directly, at least not in the fellowcraft, right? But that's another facet that we learn about later that is equally important. And we went from a time where it was not constantly in front of us, but we were exposed to the memento mori concept on a more regular basis, to hiding it, being afraid of it, and definitely don't post anything about it on Facebook or anything like that. So it's there's definitely been a shift in the mentality, and I know a lot of people jumped on the memento mori bandwagon because it was cool, right? I mean, there's a skull, but I don't know. Maybe we needed some people to get on in it for the wrong reason, for it to actually get the attention it deserves. But I think it's definitely something that we, first of all, we need to stop being afraid of. We stop being afraid of the symbolism. And I mean, I think it's one of the most important symbols of all the symbols of Freemasonry. It's the one that will for sure one day affect you. And so I think it's probably one of the most important symbols.
I concur. I'll just leave it at that. Not just kidding. I was thinking while you were talking about losing, or we were talking about losing old traditions or old symbolism and old ways of doing things. Tonight I was talking with an older brother, and it was pretty interesting that he brought up something that was pretty impactful to me. We were talking, and all the brothers were over there talking at the table, and me and this older fellow were one of my older mentors, and he said, I tell you, in today's Freemasonry, we would never talk back then the way that we talk today. The way that you hear a lot of these brothers go on and say different words that that are just not proper to be said in public, much less at your house. And he was talking about cussing, and so many people, and we started talking about it. And I remember when I was a kid, my parents taught me that when you cuss, it's because you're not intelligent enough to come up with a proper word to say in its place. And that's always stuck with me. So of course, you hear me cuss sometimes. I grew up in the transmission industry, so I got pretty rude for a while. But when I hear people get belligerently ugly with their words and stuff, yeah, it's a lack of intelligence. And you're right. As we grow as individuals and we learn these Masonic principles, you notice that people that are further along in their journey tend to talk better. They walk better. They carry themselves in a different way. And I'm not saying that I'm one of those guys at all, because I'm still a wild card sometimes. But to that point, if you follow the staircase, that's a lifelong journey, and you can tell by the way somebody carries themselves if they're really applying those things to themselves on a daily basis.
Yeah, we're all on the level. We're all equals, but we're all at different points in our journey. And some people
we should all be leveling up. We should all be focused on leveling up and trying to do better.
So some brothers are at the same point that they were when they started years ago. And then there's some brothers that, like you're saying, like you'll tell over time, like they'll improve in rhetoric. Not rhetoric. What the heck is that? Rhetoric. They might learn about like astronomy or some more esoteric things like that. But you can tell over time they're putting the work in. And Freemasonry doesn't really judge you by the work you put in, how much or to what rate you do so. But it is, and I'm noticing this more and more, it is refreshing to see brothers that are putting the work in, because it makes a huge difference.
Yes. And you see them and even at the festive boards, you can see a different person showing up, a different brother showing up than what you're accustomed to, just by visiting lodges, because you see guys that are trying to learn from each other and trying to expand their horizons and open their hearts and minds and spirits to different concepts. And so you tend to see a little bit of a level up, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what you're wearing. We do dress nice because it's good to dress the occasion at times, but it has absolutely nothing to do with that. You can tell by the conversations that are spurred from the educational talks. And what's interesting is after the talk, you see people disperse and just start talking amongst each other, and the conversations that happen in those circles, in those little circles that develop, in the bubbles that develop from that one topic. I love walking the room and talking with people and just hearing all the different things that come about through discussion like that comes from a festive board.
Yeah. So we have just about 5 minutes left for this particular podcast.
Are you worn out, Robert? Did we wear you out?
No, I'm good. I was just listening.
Yeah. And so I'd like to open the floor for any final thoughts. Let's start with Robert, if you're game for it.
Final thoughts.
You got to keep that on there.
Y'all talked about the winding stairs and going through that progression, I'd point out, it starts with grammar and rhetoric and
Yes, yes.
focusing inward and on the self and being able to draw yourself out to share your thoughts with other people. And it graduates to astronomy as far removed from yourself as you can possibly be. And there's a reason for that. Freemasonry is intended to lead you into methods of perfecting yourself so that you can then turn out of yourself and become a less selfish and less self-centered person and better the world around you. So I agree with you guys that you can tell the difference between guys who are actually taking the time to work on those things and those who aren't, because of course you can. It's going to make a difference in the way that you interact with other people. And I'm really glad you guys are emphasizing that and highlighting it on your show, because it needs to be stressed more often in Masonry. Because we're not just a bunch of guys who hang out or as is sometimes said about festive boards, just go and drink together. There's a lot more going on there. And Justin can tell you from last year's festive board that we learned a lot about the historic symbolism of phalluses. And he thought about that a lot in the days and nights that followed. He just could not stop thinking about the phalluses.
I thought about Dennis. I was like, Dennis would really have enjoyed this.
Yes. Dennis would have. And I'll be thinking about that festive board every time I'm at the Scottish Rite and we start going into the Egyptian teachings.
Oh yeah. The 31st degree.
Man.
Well, we tend to pull up the gods in many degrees.
So I want to give Dennis his opportunity to say something, but you said something that Robert said something that was really profound to me. It kind of made my gears start turning. You mentioned as you ascend the winding staircase, the further you get away from yourself, ultimately ending in astronomy. I was like, and you have geometry, which is number 5, and we all know what geometry represents, but or letter G more specifically, which I think are synonymous, right? We're told that in the charge, but music's right there in between, which is very interesting. These things build off one another to an extent, and so to have geometry number 5, astronomy number 7, and then you have music right there in between. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, and in our time, music and astronomy seem like very different disciplines, but in the Reformation era, which eventually led to things like Freemasonry coming into their modern form, your most important books about astronomy had titles like on the harmony or the revolution of the spheres, right? So there was a notion of not just the stars and planets being a sort of musical composition, a perfected musical composition by the supreme architect, but also that internally the human body's organs and its components and its systems, like the circulatory system, all had direct correspondence to the universe and astronomy, that there was a similar sort of music or harmony happening there. So your anatomists and your doctors and your surgeons were all studying astronomy and vice versa because they thought there was a parallel. The common phrase that we still hear is "as above, so below." The less common but equally important back then follow-up to that was "as within, so without." And Freemasonry carries that forward, even with guys who aren't aware that they're participating in those traditions and those disciplines. That's a neat thing about Masonry. Even the guys who don't take the time to focus in on this stuff and study it, they kind of get steeped in it anyway just by going through the degrees and learning the work. They get the framework, and even that bare minimum changes you to some degree.
Man.
So absolutely, brothers, with what both of y'all were talking about, the stairs that we're climbing as we're going, the lessons that we're learning, we are learning to make ourselves more intelligent so that we come to God correct. So we come to God in so we're ready to learn about God, to understand God, to know God. That's why we teach ourselves. That's why we read. That's why we listen to the podcast. That's why we watch the documentaries. That's why we listen to the podcast. The podcast. The podcast. Masonic Improvement. The podcast. No, just kidding. But that's why we do all these things, and we go to the classes, the continuing Masonic education classes. I tell you, in San Antonio, we have a wonderful program for continuing Masonic education. And I'm going to tell you, Austin, Texas has stepped it up. The Austin Scottish Rite Valley, they have got a magnificent way that they teach the degrees on Friday nights with a dinner on the stage. They go through the degrees and you relive it. And it's just a magnificent way to learn about the degrees. They're really doing great things in Austin.
So the
I
honors,
gotta tell you, San Antonio and Austin.
The Austin Scottish Rite sounds a lot better than San Antonio Scottish Rite, the way you make it sound.
No, that's not even close, because San Antonio we have our in-person CMEs as well as our Zoom CMEs, and it's open to anybody that's Scottish Rite, not just a particular group or whatever. Anybody that's Scottish Rite, if you can be verified, then you can join in on our discussions. In our in-person, we're going through each degree. We started with the first 3 in Blue Lodge, and we discussed them at length with the symbolism and what was said and done and what everything meant. And in the Scottish Rite degrees, we're doing it, and we're also discussing the Northern Scottish Rite degrees and comparing them. It's very cool. It's very cool because they're the same lessons, but they're done in a completely different way, and we're having so much fun with that. But Austin really does have something special going on with their Friday night CMEs, and you just got to throw a shout out to those guys because they're really stepping up their game. And speaking of the gift that you're going to need to edit out when I said that I knew what it was earlier and where it can be seen. The gift that we're going to get, I've seen it firsthand in Austin, and they do it
in Boston.
They kind of do it in Austin,
Texas.
Austin, Texas. It might as well be Boston.
Austin, Massachusetts.
Yeah, they're from out of this world, but they're still cool guys. We love those brothers, and we also, like I said, listening to the podcasts. Not just ours, but think about historical light. That's an amazing podcast. I love listening to the guys. In fact, we do a toast at the end of our CME Zoom. At the end of our discussions, we end it with a toast. And I got that from listening to Robert and Alex on Historical Light, because during COVID they were doing that almost every night.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the 9 o'clock toast. And so we do that. We end our Scottish Rite meeting with that toast because of that tradition. And that way at 9 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock somewhere. We all give a toast to Masons around the world. So it's a pretty cool thing. And then, you've got all these other great venues like the Winding Staircase. We're gonna be talking with those brothers soon, and it's just an amazing
spoiler tag.
It's just an amazing time in Freemasonry. If you're not getting what you think you were looking for in Freemasonry, we can help you. We can help you get there. We're talking to people all over the place. We're traveling to meet these people because we love Freemasonry and we love the opportunities that come from it. And so if you need assistance in learning a little bit more about it, if your area covers it, I mean, not every area in the world has a lodge to join. So just keep that in mind. If we tell you we can't do it, it's not because we don't want to.
And specifically, remember in the last episode, Dennis himself said that if he could travel to your lodge and help out, he would. So be it El Paso, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Montreal, Canada, just let me know and I will give you Dennis's personal information so you can reach out to him and he'll book a ticket. He doesn't care if it's in Shanghai, China. He will be there to assist. That is the level of dedication you'll get from from the Right Worshipful Dennis Yates.
That's exactly right. I'm called the guru of Goliad for a reason, because I will do that. You call me, I've got presentations I can give, and I'll be happy to come and visit your lodge and visit you and yeah, give me a call. If I've got the time open, I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll go. Now my boy Justin here, he's a homebody. He started Masonic Improvement because he likes to be in front of the computer. He's a millennial, so he doesn't get out there in the real world. But I get out there. I'm an Xer, man. I dig it. So
Dennis is my idol. I want to grow up and be like him.
Let us know. Let us know how we can help, because truly Freemasonry is an enjoyable experience. There's nothing else in the world like it. There really isn't, because you've got brothers that they love fellowship.
You have OES.
No. I'm sorry. There is no other fraternity like it in the world. You have your fellowship, your fraternity, your philanthropy, your history, your education, your esoteric, your ritual. Your esoteric and your ritual. And good food, man. We got lots of good food. And usually at the end of the night, it's a scotch and a cigar for a lot of us.
The best green beans money can buy.
That's exactly right.
We've
got it down to an art.
That is
We've got it down to an art. The beans are greener on this side. The beans are greener.
The true secrets of Freemasonry involve green beans.
The beans are greener on this side of the fence. Yes. Brothers, thank you for having us. We love what we do. I can say that for myself for sure. I love Justin. I love you guys, and this is my favorite part of Freemasonry right here. It's reaching out. So,
with that said, I would just like to remind everybody of a few things. Just some housekeeping. Number one, if you have not got yourself a ticket to the Waco Festive board that's coming up, I will include links below, both in the video description and in the comment section. I'll pin it so it'll be at the top. It is well worth your time. It is well worth the money. It is well worth the travel. Make it a priority. Get yourself a ticket before they all go away. You want to be there. It's going to be great. Where else are you going to get Dennis Yates' autograph? I mean, come on, man.
or a picture with Justin Jones.
Yeah,
JJ himself.
Or that. Also,
wait. Don't forget, there's going to be auctions, silent auctions. He misspoke. He said that there would be a custom case for the auction. There's going to be two. Robert, there's going to be two cases for the auction. One will be a past master's case, or a master's case if you're a master mason. I have the master's as well. The other is going to be specific to the event, a one of a kind made just for you with your name embroidered on it. That one's going to be the big ticket case for the auction, because it's going to be a one of a kind, and it's going to be made for you, specific to the event. So, brothers, there and the painting. Are you kidding me? there's so many cool things, and you know the door prize, the door gifts. I can't wait. I
Yeah.
know what it is, and I am stoked. I've been waiting for that.
Cool. Yeah. I'm glad you get to go. It's gonna be fun.
Sorry, I jumped in on your
Oh no,
bandwagon.
no. I'm glad you took care of my wrap up for me.
I jumped into his bandwagon.
No, it's all good. But on top of the festive board, Robert is also a co-host on the Historical Light podcast.
Yes,
I'll include links for that as well. If you have not subscribed to it, it is a very, very interesting podcast. Well worth your time. It's also on YouTube. I
listen to it all the time.
Yeah, like whenever I'm driving, it's whenever there's a new episode, I make it a priority. It's always interesting. It's always good. Also, Austin Scottish Rite, San Antonio Scottish Rite, both fantastic organizations. I'm told I'm not Scottish Rite Mason, so I'm kind of from the outside looking in, but I hear great things. So if you're in those areas and you're looking at doing Scottish Rite, definitely join Austin. And if they're booked up, you can probably look at San Antonio. They might have something. So that'd be good. What else? Oh, I showed a book earlier. So this is a really interesting book. I was saying, Robert gave a presentation about it. It's not coming through very well, but it's called The Masonic Magician. It's a
Egyptian Freemasonry. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll include a link to that also.
The original Ouroboros.
Just because it's so interesting. Yeah, the original. Look at that thing. So it's definitely worth checking that out. I'll include links for that. Oh, the last thing I was going to mention, Masonic Improvement shirts are also available. So
get the swag. Get the swag.
Yeah, you gotta hit the swag, man. So lots of links. You have your options,
and
you don't have to click them
might
all.
Just bring
pick the ones you want.
We might just bring one of those shirts and hats with us to the festive board as well. We might look out.
Yeah, I might get one, and you can put it on and let Dennis sign it for you.
Ooh,
yeah. That's all I have that comes to mind.
Yes, we also have the weekend before the festive board is AMD Day in Waco, and that's always a fun time. If you're an AMD member, you get to go up and see a lot of the degrees, and they usually switch them out from year to year so that you don't see the exact same ones every year. But you can see 20 different degrees in 1 year. And these are lost degrees. These are not degrees that you're going to find anywhere else. These are lost degrees, and that's why AMD is there. It's the Allied Masonic degrees, and it's to keep Freemasonry alive, the lost degrees. So if you're a member, if you're one of those bodies, then come on down to Waco. And also, if you're not a member, then find out who is around you.
I thought it was invitation only.
It is invitation only, but how do you think you're going to get an invite if you don't know who's a member?
I don't know. I got an invite. I didn't even know we had one at our lodge.
But you know what? I don't think yours is like mine.
Oh, probably not. I mean, mine's awesome.
Yeah, mine's better than awesome.
Oh, okay. All
right. Mine's contagious.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I want to get that checked. Put some cream on it.
I know. There is no cure for this disease.
All right, brothers.
Freemasonry. Y'all have fun. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed it.